to
That's Not Praise, a Nicolas Cage podcast.
I'm your co-host VH Zest.
And I am your other co-host, Captain of Nostalgia.
So what are we talking about?
I've already talked.
Oh, you briefed them?
Yeah, I briefed them.
Hello, everyone. Wow, this is 300% more people than we usually have.
Yeah, we are
incredible.
Our reason for why we do stuff is we typically get together, share a meal, watch a movie, and then podcast like dorks about it and get into some pretty deep conversations. And I'm expecting to get some pretty deep conversations on this one. I'm also expecting Micah to drop the microphone at some point. We're going to apologize in advance if you guys have seen Teen Titans Go to the movies. We're going to be talking about spoilers, but we're also going to be...
I love that you're bringing this up because, like, the movie has spoilers in it for other movies.
True. And we're also going to be professing our love for Nicolas Cage as Superman. How many of you guys know that Nicolas Cage was actually supposed to be Superman at one point? Are you guys cool if I interact with you guys? You know, get you guys in here.
Oh, sure.
No, they're introverts. That's why they're here.
Oh, well, their panel's right up after us. We'll do some cross promotion here for you guys.
Oh,
is that
sweet.
Cool? All right, I'm gonna flip the camera around if I can. Let's get you guys on here real quick. So cool. So tell me a little bit about what you guys do.
Oh, sweet. Hey, I'm Jesse Galena, Rexicon Jesse on all things social media. I'm a video producer and stuff for Escapist, and I do Adventurers Night with Jack Packard and Yatsa Croshaw and Casey Lusso and Aiden Campbell around the Escapist, which is a tabletop RPG thing. And I also do RPG Help Desk, which is the panel I'm going to do here, but also is online. And I do a bunch of other RPG stuff.
Where can people find out more information?
Oh man, you can do that on my website, which is rexconjesse.com, my Twitter, which is @rexconjesse, same with Reddit, r/rexconjesse, and itch.io, which is rexconjesse.itch.io.
Thank you. All right, let me ask you this brief question.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Nicolas Cage?
He seems like a delightful human.
Yes.
That's right.
Rarely not a treat to watch, regardless of what he's doing.
That's so well said and articulated.
So well said. We'll only do this for a couple more people. What do you think of thoughts on Nicolas Cage?
I think he is a wizard. I feel like if there was a person who was a wizard and he said, I'm a wizard, I wouldn't.
Magician's Apprentice.
Yeah, I wouldn't question it.
Sorcerer's Apprentice. We haven't covered it yet. Oh, it's coming.
You're right.
That is true.
All right. You think has any panel actually left here? What's the range on these mics?
You should be able to do that.
All right. You want to go out and ask people what they think of Nicolas Cage? You guys.
I have ice cream.
All right.
But I'm going to commentate because I can be over here.
We'll do this street style. All right. The live people can hear the audio. You want to start with Max's dad?
Dude, go ask Max's dad.
Max, what's your dad's name? Mark. All right. I want to see how far this thing will reach. We're gonna go streetwise. I'm here with Brick Crafts, Mr. Mark. It's on Nicolas Cage.
Starting to play out now.
Oh, you're far, Josh.
Interesting information about Nicolas Cage. He already owns his tombstone down in New Orleans.
Oh, yeah, you're right. He's prepared.
It's ironic for a man that will never die.
It's just for show, I'm sure.
He's a wizard.
All right, you're good. All right. So for those of you guys that don't know, Nicolas Cage owns his own tombstone. You guys want to come in here and talk about Nicolas Cage? We're going to talk about Teen Titans eventually. All right, so let's turn this around. Let's get into some Nicolas Cage. All right, let's talk about it. Let's do this.
Yeah.
When we sit down.
Okay.
Because it cuts off our heads if we don't.
True.
Violently, it would just decapitate. Face looks like you guys are
Our heads are decapitated from our body.
no longer matter anymore. Here you go. So this was your first time seeing this movie. I got a chance to see it in theaters. You're kind of a comic.
I really do love the Teen Titans. The fact that I didn't see this movie in theaters is an anomaly because I love the theaters and I love the Teen Titans. So it's kind of weird. But yes, I didn't see this movie somehow until this past Thursday evening. Oh, also, I would like to say that evening my wife made, what was it?
Chicken parm.
She made chicken parm, but I made a point to buy Francis Coppola wine.
Oh yeah.
Shout out once again to Nicolas Cage. That is his uncle, and he directed The Godfather. So it was delicious.
Yeah, we really had a truly immersive experience.
Very immersive. And then we watched a cartoon.
I'm not looking
I mean, I'm about this. I really truly love this movie. I think it's, I was telling a mutual friend of ours that I feel like this movie is vastly underrated in the scheme of comic book movies because everyone looks at things that the MCU is doing and compares it saying, oh, the DC is too dark because it doesn't have enough jokes like Marvel does.
Yeah.
And I think this film in particular is a great example of how Warner Brothers is able to make bold decisions, but also at the same time, even if they don't work out, like
They can still own up to
BTS. Yeah, like there's a great scene in here where Green Lantern, there was a Green Lantern movie. We don't talk about it.
Yeah, or there's another scene where they're doing alleged filming with Batman and Superman, and Batman's fighting, and he's like, "What's your mother's name?" And Superman goes, "Martha," and he goes, "Really?
My mommy's
Mine
name."
too. And Clark goes, "My dad's name's John," and Bruce goes, "Mine's Thomas," and then fights him again. It's incredible.
But yeah, no, I think this film is a really interesting film to kind of look at through the lens of specifically what we do because this movie is basically Robin trying to be validated as an individual.
Yep. Yeah, it's if you've ever seen the movie Sky High, it's kind of on the pulse of that movie of like, oh yeah, if you're a sidekick, then you're less than, and that's just not.
And I guess with like just kind of doing that right now, like I guess I want to validate anyone that's like within earshot right now, anyone that's in this room. I just want to let you know that you have value and purpose. And I don't know who's told you that or when the last time you heard that was, but you just existing are valid as an individual. And thank you for being here in this room, and or even to the vendor packing up with the awesome Hocus Pocus t-shirt right next to us. But I think it's such a relatable thing because I think that, at least for myself, and I think you've gone through it too, like you look at kind of like people online and we're like, oh, well, because I don't have X amount of followers, then I'm not good enough to have a podcast. I'm not good enough to do a panel. I'm not good enough to, do anything really.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. It's very true. This movie is very much examined. Like it's a funny movie. It makes ridiculous references, all that. Like people loved it because it was like, oh, that was so funny, and they're so right. It was very funny, But it's also like a really kind of an honest look at the fact that like, yeah, a lot of people just feel second best, and the reasons why are not their own doing. Yeah, that's kind of a shame.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. If I can ask, I like to interact with people when we do these live events. How old is everyone out here?
We get an average. We just add up everybody's ages and divide.
Yeah, Max, I already know how old you are. That doesn't count. What about you guys right here? How old are you guys?
35.
35? 30? 60? 23. All right, how many of you guys on a daily basis never really act your age?
There you go. Well, because in all of their sense, like, this is their first year of being each of those ages. They don't know where to stand.
Valid. Okay. Well, I mean, for young freshmen in college, 60. so on and so forth. Like, how many of you guys like actually like act to that maturity, and how often do you act that maturity? It's okay. I mean, paying bills doesn't make you mature.
I don't know. Hey,
Just
that's what
responsible.
it feels like to me. But
Fair. That's a valid point. But I asked that because, like, to
I pay almost all my bills.
I do too. I asked that specifically because, like, there's a scene in the beginning of the movie where, like, the big villain is a giant bubble, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you guys are kind of young to be in the Justice League," and he's like, "Oh no, we're the Teen Titans," and you kind of get to see, how much of a mockery or a joke that they are because they're not taken seriously enough because of their age.
Yeah, and to segue very, very quickly, this whole thing is very ironic for those that don't have context of the Teen Titans. The new Teen Titans series by George Perez and Mark Wolfman was the #1 selling series for 10 years. All through the 80s of any comic book series, the #1 selling series was the new Teen Titans. So, like, this movie tells its own story, yes, but the irony is that the Teen Titans are massive and they matter a lot.
Well, it's also interesting too because when you look at that series in particular, they are like young adults.
Yeah.
Like the way that we see them in Justice League versus Teen Titans,
Right.
they are like young, late to mid 20s.
Right.
And that's kind of like the Teen Titans has always kind of been like I feel like a rather ironic name for them.
For sure. Totally.
But
It made sense in the 60s because the whole thing about the Teen Titans in the 60s was like, yeah, you could, Robin started this team and you could be on the team. It was very funny. If you had the consent of your hero, if you will. That was legitimately like the billing. And so they were all teenagers. And then when they brought in the new Teen Titans in 1980 with Mark Wolfman, it was just like, well, what are we supposed to call it? And that they didn't, I don't know. I think they kept their pulse on the branding, not on the realism.
But I mean, speaking to like the branding of it, like George Perez has gone on in several interviews talking about how like they wanted to address things like drug addiction and like isolation and kind of like the mental health. Really, so when you read those things, that they're not this like hokey version that we have gotten because the 80s were a dark time for comics.
Yeah. Well, I don't know when there has been a really bright time for comics, but
I mean, in retrospect,
Yeah.
some of the silver and golden age are pretty campy.
True.
Also, Batman fighting aliens on the moon in the 50s. So
Yeah. Oh, and the rainbow suits. Can't forget the
Rainbow Reader.
Rainbow Reader.
Sorry, there's a scene where like the Flash's main villain is
Allegedly.
allegedly in this universe is the Rainbow Raider.
They're going around and they're like, oh, every superhero, this is what sets them apart. They have a bad guy whose name you can say, like ominously, and so they're like, Lex Luthor, and they do all these different things, and then they're like, the Flash, he has Rainbow Raider, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, what would you say the Flash's like biggest bad like arch enemy outside of the Rogues would be?
Reverse Flash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's weird that they kind of like went that like really deep cut. Like I don't think a whole lot of people know about Rainbow Raider.
Yeah.
Unless you are fans of like the history of the comics.
Yeah, I was really proud of this movie and like Batman for the deep cuts. Like on one hand, like it was a fresh take on Teen Titans Go and on the idea of superhero films, which is something I want to talk about more in this podcast. Is like the way this movie views that. But it was also like, wow, I forgot what I was gonna say.
Well, I can jump in here real quick. How many of you guys have ever actually heard of Rainbow Raider prior to us mentioning it?
One person.
Yeah,
This guy has a rainbow mask on. Like he has the street cred for it, and still.
It's I love your look, by the way. Loving the fishnets and super jealous of those boots.
But the movie was really good about like, yeah, we're gonna make a fresh story, and it's gonna be kid friendly, but also like, you're gonna laugh harder if you know who the challengers of the unknown are. than if you don't. You know, they put in those deep cut references.
They're unknown. It's literally in the name.
Very well.
It's also a Raven reference in that movie. But yeah, I think that this film, kind of coming back to the validations, like when you look at kind of the market for superhero movies, how many of you guys still like superhero movies? Some of them, yeah. So how many of you guys kind of feel the weight of that fatigue? Yeah.
Market saturation's a thing.
So like, yeah, it does, and like there's a scene in this movie where they're kind of going through and they're like, coming soon. Alfred. coming next summer. The Batmobile.
Yeah.
Coming next summer. Utility belts.
Yeah.
So they have these, like, they're just like, and then as they're like walking through all like the DC like backlots, like they're like, all right, we're gonna give Swamp Thing a movie, the Atom's gonna get a movie, like just literally any comic book hero you can think of, except for the Teen Titans, are getting these movies. Even a utility belt.
Even a utility belt, yep.
You put stuff inside.
An object. Yeah, and that's something I like. I like about this movie. It drives home the sort of like moral of the story, if you will. But I also think like it's a great caricature and a great satire on superhero movies. Because at this point, like, you know, you're having hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people freaking out because they're making a Captain Marvel movie and they don't know anything about Captain Marvel, you know. And it's like there's nothing wrong with that, but it's also just like, you know, what are we doing for the original properties, and what makes, you know, one property more worthy of a movie than another, and what is it doing for like the culture of stuff like this, conventions that like really has always thrived on like fandom, community, and like physical media, comic books, and the history of it all, versus just like, oh, have you seen the latest such and such, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting too that you bring up like the convention landscape. I'm gonna ask another question, get you guys involved. What's the reason that you guys kind of come to these mini conventions? Like, why are you guys?
That's a great question.
Max, let's start with you.
People, honestly, like,
Meet people.
yeah, like,
Oh.
because I'm a big fan of like TV shows and
All right.
stuff. So, because I
Come
love
on here.
superhero TV shows.
All right, I'm gonna come up here. I'm just gonna high five. Who gives me an answer? What about you, sir?
Sometimes I come out here and do panels and stuff, which is really fun. But yeah, I wish I had the social equity to meet people. That would be good. But as an introvert, it's a little hard. But it is nice to kind of be around similar-minded people and people that you know why. Like, we all have something in common here, and that's a really nice energy to share with everybody.
Right.
We can exchange information after
Okay.
our thing. We'll make something happen. What about you?
I like learning about new things to watch and read.
I dig that. All right, sound guy. Did you get hired to come out here, or are you like a comic book guy?
I mean, I got hired to come out here.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Pikachu, what brings you here?
Well, this is actually my first convention I've ever been to. But I've actually really been interested in it because I like to see everything that people are really interested in.
Yeah. Josh, do you think the sound guy had more to say?
Oh, my bad, dude. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I was hired to come out here, but it's cool. Cool people. It's fun.
There you go.
Just checking it out.
Yeah, you get a high five too.
Yeah.
Doing a
Yeah,
great job.
if you weren't hired to come out here, maybe you would have never gone to a convention.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. This is your first convention?
Yeah.
There you
Are
go.
you gonna come back for more?
Yeah, probably.
There you go. See?
All right, it works. What about you guys? What's up? Absolutely. To meet new people and get the experience of a first time. Great answer. You want a high five? Yeah. All right. What about you?
It's my first time coming out here, and I like meeting new people too. And the comics and all that. I've always been into that stuff.
There you go.
Yeah. Absolutely. I don't know. Monster fist bump there. Yeah, so we've been having the pleasure of doing, this is probably coming up on like our 50th convention or something crazy like that. We've been doing conventions for about 4 years and been traveling a whole lot. Luckily, this is the, about a year and a half ago we moved to Richmond. When I met this crazy guy.
Yeah, we as an entity, not Josh and I.
My wife and I moved here to Richmond about a year ago. So it's exciting to be able to do a hometown convention. And, yeah, it's just weird and exciting. But
yeah, we slept. We got to sleep.
I know.
That's not always the case.
I know. For myself, the reason that I enjoy doing these conventions is because I, much like all of you guys, enjoy coming out and meeting new people. You know, part of the reason why we do these conventions as a nonprofit is to A, give out resources, but also B, to kind of hear these stories about why people got into fandoms. When I started going to conventions, I loved kind of having that was kind of my thing about like, there's a Pikachu in the back. They like, you know, what got you into like Pokemon, you know, what got you into music, and kind of like hearing these stories about, oh, well, I have a bad home life, or I am bullied at school, or, you know, just a number of different things. I came to this to forget, to escape, and
or not to, in a way.
Yeah.
You know, because I think like, a lot of times, like, we can think of our fandoms and the things we enjoy as escapes, but realistically speaking, they actually help make us feel seen or understood when we come to places like this. So that it's like ironic, but it's almost not an escape. It's actually to be seen.
Yeah, but a lot of the reasons.
Right, acceptance.
I really wanted to. When my wife and I started this journey, is we really wanted to bring those conversations and those mental health resources into places, so that people could feel heard, so that people could feel validated. Which is, I think, one of the reasons why I've seen this movie a couple of times, but like every time that I see this movie, it just makes me fall more and more in love with it, because of I've known what it's like to kind of be considered the weird guy, because for a long time I lived in a pretty rural area for a while, and all the movies that I liked and all the music I listened to, and sometimes the way that I dressed isn't always like traditional in that setting. And so places like Comic-Con and horror conventions have always kind of made me feel like I'm not crazy. Right. And doing podcasts have definitely helped with that. So Robin's search for validation and kind of you know, needing to be just like everyone else, kind of, you know, no matter what the costs are. And I think one of the heartbreaking things about this movie is that he actually leaves and abandons his community to chase this dream. And I just want to say that no person is ever worth leaving your validation for. If that person is harming your mental health, that's a different story.
Yeah.
But if that person is encouraging you, but you'd rather chase after a dream, it's not worth it.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. It's kind of a weird line to walk, because like that's not at all to say that your dreams are invalid or anything like that. But yeah, people are more important, and you are the first priority on that list of people who are more important. Yeah. You know, and it's like if your dream means, you know, if you're trading your dream for your community or your convictions or you know, whatever else, like if you're signing a dotted line that says that you get a paycheck to do X, Y, or Z, but that signature is also saying, you know, there's an aspect of creativity or control or something like that you lose, then that's compromise. That's not necessarily fulfillment of your dream.
Yeah.
You know, it might look like it, but
and always be true to yourself, because one of the excerpts that Robin goes through in this film is like kind of like betraying his identity,
right?
Really, and I know we kind of laugh about it, but there's like a montage point in this movie where he's like being like just like almost like Fabio, like a romance novel. He's got like the long hair, and he's got like the just huge pectorals, and he's like, they're trying to like just make him as sexy as possible, and you kind of corrupt who you are in that process.
Right.
And it goes back to that old saying, absolute power corrupts.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like you really, by trading in that power for that community, you are abandoning just a portion of yourself, because it goes back to even something like employment. Like, how many of you guys ever had a job you hated? It's really damaged your mental health. It's like, it doesn't matter how good the pay is or how good the benefits are. Sometimes your mental health should always be more. And I want to really stick that into even like to some of the younger people in here right now. Like, understand that your employment is always going to might not always be the best place, but your what am I trying to say? Your sanity, your mental health are worth more than a paycheck.
Yeah.
And big corporations, they don't understand mental health. They don't understand people sometimes. And again, I just want to validate you as an individual. It's probably the reason the universe is trying to speak to you and saying that there's something out there that's better for you. All right. This is Nicolas Cage podcast.
That's right.
So, Nicolas Cage's Superman, what did you think?
Oh, dude. It was great. I don't know. I mean, it was just Nick Cage's voice reading the lines that they gave him. I mean, it wasn't like my idea of Superman. He was kind of just a commentator to the Titans. What did he call them? Did he call them Goofy?
Yeah.
Or something like that? Yeah. I mean, it was a lot of fun. It was great. It was more so I loved it because I know how big of a fan Nick Cage is of Superman.
Yeah, here's a fun fact for you guys. How many of you guys know that how many of you guys know Superman has a Kryptonian name? Okay.
Yeah.
So, Superman's Kryptonian name is actually Kal-El.
Right.
Kal-El is also the name of Nicolas Cage's son.
Yep.
His
younger son,
who's also in this movie as young Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, that was the most satisfying thing. When the credits are so satisfying, but it was super cool because he finally got to be Superman. There was the whole Superman Lives movie that didn't get up off the ground and then eventually somehow became Wild Wild West. Okay. And then and the fact that he sold the most valuable comic in the world, and that is Action Comics #1, and all this stuff, named his son Kal-El, and so just the satisfaction of him being the character, for his son to be in the movie as another character, and it's just super cool on just that level, on just a level of trivia even. It was really great, but it was not remarkable as a role,
If you or someone you know is listening to this podcast right now and you're struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, we encourage you guys to please reach out. This is the heartbeat of why we do what we do. Suicide is currently the 10th leading cause of death in the United States, and as of this recording, there are 132 suicides that take place each and every day on American soil. And when you scale back internationally, there are 800,000 successful suicides. That is one death roughly every 40 seconds. So if you or someone you know is struggling, you guys can go to victimsandvillains.net/hope. That resource is going to be right in the description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this. There you'll find resources that include the National Suicide Lifeline, which is 1-800-273-8255. You can also text HELP to 741-741. We also have a plethora of other resources, including churches, getting connected with counselors, LGBT resources like the Trevor Project, and also veteran hotline as well. Please, if you hear nothing else in the show, understand that you listening to this right now, have value and worth. We get it. Suicide, depression, mental health, these are hard topics, and the stigma around them doesn't make it any easier. But please consider the resources right in the descriptions below, wherever you guys are listening, because once again, you have value and you have worth. So please stay with us.
Yeah, it's weird in the landscape of like supermen.
Yeah.
Because I feel like now the conversation comes down to it's either going to be Henry Cavill or Christopher Reeves being everyone's favorite Superman. So,
Sure.
Audience poll. What do you guys prefer? Hands up for Christopher Reeves. Oh man. Hands up for Henry Cavill. Oh, you guys don't care either way.
Okay, do you guys like Superman? Wait a minute, we should have taken this poll first. Do you guys like Superman? Yeah.
I wasn't paying attention.
Yes? You weren't paying? Okay. They like Superman? Okay, cool.
What was the question again?
Do you like Smallville version?
Oh yeah, Tom
Yo,
Welling.
Tom Welling.
Tom Welling was
Good call.
Superman.
Yeah.
He's a great Clark Kent.
Yes.
Sound guy, what's your name, by the way?
Hank.
Hank. Do you have a preference on Superman?
Honestly, I'm not too well versed in movies. I did like Man of Steel. I know everybody hates it, but
No, that's my favorite superhero movie.
Same.
that was a good movie.
Yes.
Yeah, that
Great
was,
movie.
Man of Steel's great, yeah.
But yeah, I think you're right. But there's something, like you said, there's something satisfying about kind of seeing an actor's dream come to fruition. Especially when this is like a huge passion project for him was to be a live action Superman, and he also they were back. I don't know if you guys have seen Crisis on Infinite Earths that came out. CW did a few years ago. But they were joking about trying to get Nicolas Cage to play Superman in one of the versions. And I don't know if you knew that or not.
That was a joke?
That was a legit thing that people were trying to do. But
Okay,
it started as a
It is
joke.
not a joke. Good.
But honestly, I would have loved to see that.
Right.
And just kind of promote this out there. If you guys are curious about the Superman movie that almost was, a couple years ago, I guess at this point it was like 10 years, but John Schnepp, he was an animator. He's done shorts for Marvel. He's animated Metalocalypse.
Yeah.
But basically, yeah, metal. He did a documentary called "The Death of Superman: What Happens." It's on YouTube. You watch the
Superman Lives.
"The Death of Superman Lives: What Happens."
What happened?
It's an incredible documentary.
Yeah.
They go through and you get to kind of see like the radical ideas that they were trying to promote for like Tim Burton's Nicolas Cage Superman hybrid.
Super cool.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
And like they were trying to do like the Death of Superman. If you guys have ever heard, ever read that comic.
Incredible.
But I think personally, I liked him as this version of Superman. I think he did a great job.
Yeah.
Even though he's in the movie for like 10 minutes.
Sure. Yeah. Which, I mean, that's something we've run into a decent amount on this podcast. Is like, man, this was whether it was a good movie or not, Nick Cage was in it, but that's about it.
Yeah, these like smaller people, like the smaller films that he is a part of, they like to give him like top billing,
Yeah.
so that people will watch it. And there's been at least 3 or 4 movies that we've done in the last year that we will get into it, and then we just find out, oh, Nicolas Cage is in this movie for 30 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, was it, well, I guess last week,
Outcast.
we did Outcast. It was him and Hayden Christensen. And then,
Terrible movie.
Terrible movie. Please go
Not
watch
worthy
it.
of high praise.
Absolutely watch that movie.
Go watch it.
Do it. Do it. This is peer pressure. And then, it's Jiu-Jitsu. I didn't do that one, but you did that.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, there you go. I like that reaction. Go watch Outcast.
I mean, I'll flip the camera and come down and give you the mic. You want to talk about your jiu-jitsu real quick?
Air your grievances.
Yeah, I got to see jiu-jitsu. We did a press covering for it. It's now on our Patreon, but it is one of the worst movies Nicolas Cage has ever done.
Which, if you're a hater, that's saying something. If you're not a hater, thank you.
I'm pretty sure my wife can still hear us.
That's okay. I'm only with her.
That's true, I did.
Did you hear what she said? She
What?
said, I'm not listening.
Oh, yeah. Well, she can still hear it. She loves Nicolas Cage. Just gonna throw that out there. I heard that. Just as a lot of chicane with all her entire diaphragm. I hate Nicolas Cage. It's not accurate. But no, kind of getting back to this movie. Also, it has a great soundtrack.
Josh didn't tell me this until we were like 5 minutes in the movie. I love musicals. I'm just a sucker. And he was like, "Yeah, Micah, this movie's kind of a musical." And it just, from there on out, it was heaven. It was so good. There's like these dumb, cheesy, like hip hop songs where they introduce each character and do all like the tropes of their character throughout the years, like yelling "booyah" for no freaking reason for Cyborg and all that kind of stuff. I really wish they'd have laid into the vegan stuff with Beast Boy. That would have been funny. But yeah, that was good.
Yeah, it's super weird, and like it's cool too. Like, how many of you guys are like animation nerds? Kind of. Okay, cool. So I enjoy like experimental. I pushed for this panel to be on Spider-Verse because Nicolas Cage plays Spider-Man Noir in that. He was one of the best parts. I love that movie.
Yep, so good. There might be more people if we were talking about that movie.
But you
I did.
You said we gotta do
Teen
Teen
my
Titans.
guns. Yep. No regrets. Not one letter.
But specifically that kind of animation style is really, really unique, and I think one of the cool things about the animation style for this film is that almost every time you get into different kind of musical numbers, the animation style changes.
Yeah, they did a lot of like, there's this one scene, it's beautiful. If you just watch this on YouTube, it's so good. There's one scene where Robin is dreaming, and so they do like a Lion King spoof, and the animation just becomes like Lion King with superheroes, and there's this song, and then you see like members of the Justice League like lift their heads up, and they're chewing on grass. It's great.
Also, Superman is modeled exactly after Prince Eric, the Little Mermaid. And I've seen this movie several times, and we watched it with his wife, and she just like, it's Prince Eric in a Superman cosplay. There's another scene where they just do full blown on like anime, and there's also a Muppets like kind of animation style. It's really cool too.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. They really went all out in the movie. They just tried to have fun. I think we're like dissecting it like, oh man, mental health and validation and serious stuff, and the movie is just like fart jokes half the time. It's fantastic. It's so good. But yeah, I want to talk about, this is what I want to talk about for a little while.
Okay.
I mentioned earlier, but like something I think this movie like really addresses really well, like in a funny way, but they address it at all, and I think that's important, is like the landscape of movies and of superhero properties and things like that nowadays has really changed. It's changed comics, it's changed like fandoms in a way and stuff, and you have people who are like, they get in arguments about superheroes that are 2-3 times their age because of a movie that they saw and loved, and it's like, well, all right. But something I think that like has been really an interesting thing to see. It's caused a lot of even superhero fatigue in me in general, movies or otherwise. There's this sort of like, what goes to the theater is what matters, and what doesn't matter. It's almost like that's kind of like what the movie like builds off of. It's just like, if you have a movie, then you're an important superhero and you're a successful superhero, or you're a superhero at all and people care about you. And there's a lot of angles to that. But I don't know how you guys feel about this. You mentioned earlier that you guys like there is some like movie fatigue on the superhero end. And that's really something interesting, that it's been really frustrating. And there's this sort of like standard, because there are people who are like, oh yeah, Marvel can do no wrong, and it's like, well, that's a little bit of an absolute there, and you're probably gonna end up being jaded, and that's not all right.
How many of you guys have hated a Marvel movie?
Yeah, has anybody ever hated them? Right.
Yo.
Right, come on. I mean, their track record is good. Their track record is not flawless, and nobody's is, and that's just not the point. The point is that like, it's almost gotten more difficult to be a fan as the movies have come out, because it becomes a pissing contest. And you have characters like Superman, and if it weren't for Superman, then we wouldn't be here. Let's be honest.
Facts.
And we wouldn't be friends. There's so much. 1938, Action Comics dropped, superheroes were born, and now he's kind of like a really polarizing character. So tons of people just hate Superman, and that's fine. I'm not trying to take away anybody's opinions. But it's also just like, it's become this weird pissing contest where people are like, oh, Man of Steel was a bad movie, or I didn't see it because it's Superman, or I didn't see this because it's DC, and DC can't do anything right, or whatever. And there's plenty of movies that hit theaters and they're comic book movies, but because they're not DC or Marvel, people don't even care. Like movies like R.I.P.D. or whatever. Like they're a little bit more random. But like,
I just want to throw Spawn out there.
Spawn, yeah, for sure. Why the Last Man is finally getting a series. So excited about that.
Spawn, the HBO series. If you guys have never seen it, you guys have HBO Max. Incredible.
Yeah, but I don't know how you guys feel about that. I don't know. Like that's something it's bred, I think, a lot of contention and a lot of frustration. At least for me personally, because it just seems like, oh yeah, up with Marvel, down with anything else because of X, Y, or Z. And it's like, did you know that Disney was rumored to be canceling Marvel Comics because they were doing so poorly, less than 10 years ago? Do you know that Marvel Comics has gone bankrupt so many times because they couldn't sell books and had to sell rights, and that's why in Ragnarok they say the Incredible, and then they can't say Hulk. There's so many things. Dude, nobody's perfect, and I think that the validation, quote unquote, of a movie or a studio has, I don't know. I think it's really kind of slanted and frustrating.
Yeah, it's interesting. Before I respond to that, I want to get you guys. How many of you guys remember? How many of you guys grew up in the 90s? Okay, so good handful of you guys. How many of you guys played video games in the 90s? All right, so you guys know about the console wars of Sega versus Nintendo. Mm-hmm. That is kind of what we have made comic book movies now. It's either you are team DC or you are team Marvel. Yeah. There is no gray area. There's no in between. Yeah. And that's we did a podcast about this last year for Victims and Villains, where we analyzed Misery. How many of you guys ever seen the movie Misery? So
it's a blast.
We it's very hard to watch sometimes. But basically, what we did was we looked at it through the lens of toxic fandom, and kind of how that toxicity affects your mental health. And I think that for as much as we love being here and meeting new people, making new friends, and taking these memories and experiences with us, there is that point of contention where sometimes you're almost afraid to kind of voice your opinion, right? Because you're basically going to be shut out, being like, oh, well, you're wrong for this,
right?
And I'll be honest, as a guy that has kind of been doing this for a few years, I don't read comics anymore.
Sure.
Partially because of those conversations, and I've also, as a film critic, I've also, with some of my more memorable movies in the last 3 years, have not been comic book movies. They've been these little indie darlings like Pig.
Oh my!
That we discussed earlier this
year. Have you guys seen Pig? This podcast by Nicolas Cage. Have you seen Pig? Anybody? Have you heard of Pig? A couple people.
It's life-changing.
It's the movie of the year. I saw it twice in one weekend. Go see it.
It hits Blu-ray November 2nd. I really wish that Neon, the studio that produced it, was sponsoring this, but they're not.
They're not.
It's an incredible podcast. Incredible movie. Nonetheless, I promise you guys have not seen any more wholesome movie this year than Pig.
It's very good. Anyway.
But yeah, so I just kind of feel like that fatigue is a real thing, and it felt like quarantine felt like such a breath of fresh air, because the theaters were closed, so you didn't have any of the big blockbusters lighting up the screen. And then January came and Disney was like, hold my beer, bro, and give us WandaVision, What If, Black Widow, Shang-Chi, I mean, that was just Winter Soldier and the Falcon. Wonder, like, you can't just be a fan of both.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because like, and not everybody knows this, and not everybody's going to, and that's okay. But like, you brought up Into the Spider-Verse, and don't worry, we'll cover that movie eventually. But I loved when that movie came out, and I don't know why I'm like this, but I'm such a sucker for credits. It's the weirdest thing. So I like actively read credits when I watch movies, and it was so cool because it was like, it's Miles Morales. Miles Morales was created by Brian Michael Bendis, and like for the Marvel Ultimate series, and so there's everything, you know, like produced by Brian Michael Bendis or something like that. He was definitely in the credits multiple times because, well, he created Miles Morales Spider-Man, and it was super cool. And that was not at all long after Brian Michael Bendis had quit Marvel to work for DC to write Superman specifically. And it was just like, I wonder how many people know this, you know? And I wonder how many people know, like, and for me, I was like, I'm a DC guy, this is really cool, but also just for the general community in general, it's like, you know, what about guys like Michael Bendis? What about guys like Len Wein? Len Wein died a few years ago. He created the Swamp Thing. Oh, also he created Wolverine. You know, and it's like, there's not an internal competition. Sales of one drive up sales of the other, and like the market maintains healthy business when there is less competition, especially because the writers and illustrators are not loyalists. A lot of times, so much of the time they're not. I mean, you'll see DC cover artists doing covers for Image, you know, and that's just not foreign at all. These guys are creators, they're artists, they're out here getting paid to live their dream, and that's freaking awesome. And it's not about branding. And it was just, yeah, it's been weird to see.
Well, it's like we talked to this guy yesterday that was very versed in comics.
Yeah.
And was like looking for like specific like illustrators, and that's not something I've done. Like I said, I've done cons several times. There's not a whole lot of times that you hear that kind of stuff, and
It's refreshing.
It is very refreshing.
Yeah.
The reason that I bring it up specifically is because like you do have those kind of people that are playing for both parties, and there are characters.
As you should. Yeah.
There are characters within Marvel that I'm very passionate about, that I like very much.
Absolutely, Silver Surfer.
Silver Surfer, Psylocke,
Yeah.
but also at the same time, like I still like DC. Like I'm a huge Batman guy, and I think that freaking Swamp Thing and John Constantine are among some of my favorites. And,
They brought a lot to the table when it comes to like horror comics. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love Watchmen too. So I'm just gonna throw that in there. Watchmen's my favorite book of all time.
Oh yeah.
I read it every year.
It's so good.
It's so good. But you know what else is good? Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas Cage. This is a Nicolas Cage podcast.
I don't know if you guys have caught that. It's Nicolas Cage podcast. Hank has gained a friend. What's going on? What's up, man?
Hey, have y'all ever watched Vampire's Kiss?
Yes.
Oh yeah. That's my favorite Nicolas Cage.
Yo,
Nice.
great taste.
Nice. Okay, actually, thank you. Anybody else's favorite Nick Cage movies?
Moonstruck.
Moonstruck. Yes. Oh, Cher. That was the most Italian experience I've ever had in my entire life watching that movie.
Freaking love that movie.
So good.
Did you say Mandy?
Yeah. Mandy
was actually the first Nicolas Cage movie we ever covered.
Yep. It's so good.
I just saw Willy's Wonderland a few months ago.
Yeah.
Willy's Wonderland.
He doesn't even talk.
So good.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And Mom and Dad was awesome.
Mom and Dad is a wild ride.
So I'm excited to see Pig.
Yo.
See it.
Have you seen Pig? Pig?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Pig is.
Yeah. It's so good.
That's my movie of the year. Like, it's so good. Anybody else?
Anyone else? Give me some Nicolas Cage movies. What do you guys love? Mom and Dad? Mom and Dad's a great movie.
The Wicker Man.
Yo, The Wicker Man.
It's all for honey.
Oh no, not the bees. So I'm not gonna try and pressure anyone in here, but this is kind of how our love of Nicolas Cage started. It goes back to The Wicker Man. So with the last few minutes we got, so we have a Patreon, and it's patreon.com/victims and villains. All of the money that we make on that Patreon goes towards getting mental health resources into conventions like this, and film festivals, and then we're also trying to work right now on getting into like after-school programs. But the reason I say it is because we have a $5 tier on there, and the $5 tier is called "Oh No, Not the Bees." And at this level, anyone who is not only do you get bonus content a month, but you also can tell us what to cover Nicolas Cage movie-wise.
Yep.
And
So even if you just go in and you subscribe for 1 month and give us a shout out for like one Nicolas Cage movie, and then you pull out, we get it, and that would be rad. We'd love suggestions.
it should also be worth mentioning that we've covered National Treasure already.
Yes, that is. It's one of my favorite Nick Cage movies.
Seems to be the one that everyone kind of does.
Yeah.
Wants us to cover. It's in the podcast already, but any other favorite Nicolas Cage movies? We'll turn it to you guys. No? What do you got? Turns out that Daughter has actually been sold into the underground world of snuff films, and it stars a very young punk rock Joaquin Phoenix. It's just a trippy time. It's a great movie. It's my favorite movie of Nicolas Cage.
Yeah. I feel like I kind of have two answers. I feel like I do have to say National Treasure just because it's one of those movies that for whatever reason I've seen more than almost any movie. Like, I think probably the only movie I've watched more than National Treasure is probably The Fellowship of the Ring. Which is insane, I know. But anyway, but honestly, Big. Like, and I know we keep saying it, and I know it's brand new, but like, I was blown away. It's really good. So I don't watch trailers. At least if I want to see a movie, I don't watch its trailer. So I went into the movie knowing what I'm gonna tell you now, and this is all that you get. That movie, it's about a guy who loses his pig and goes to find it. That is all.
It's not John Wick. I want to tell you that. It sounds like John Wick, but it's not John Wick.
No.
It is also to the vampire lady in the back. Mandy is my second favorite Nicolas Cage movie. It's
very good.
It's a punk rock movie.
It's so good.
If you guys have never seen
bad.
Mandy, I highly recommend it.
It's so
But
good.
I think that's gonna do it for us. We have a couple minutes left.
Yep.
But is Teen Titans Goes to the Movie worthy of high praise?
Yes, it is absolutely. I say that with and without bias toward Nick Cage and the Teen Titans. It is. It's a blast. It's a lot of fun. If you're a fan of the Lego movies, especially, it has that kind of vibes. It's really great. If you're a fan of DC Comics, you'll get a lot out of it that some won't. And if you're not, it's not exclusive. You know, it's a really, really fun movie.
It's absolutely a blast. I totally agree with you. This movie is, I was just telling my friend this, I hold this kind of in like the same category as The Dark Knight. Like, it's by far one of the best comic book movies that we've ever seen, and it gets underrated classically all the time.
Yep.
Also, just gonna throw this out there again, HBO Max, watch Spawn. It's highly underrated, and I'm hopefully that, one day we'll actually see this Blumhouse production. I'm super amped on that, but I digress. I just want to encourage you guys to stick around for the next panel if you guys have nothing to do. Because look at this guy. He just looks awesome.
One reason.
Yeah, one more reason. He can pull purple pants off in ways that I can never dream of.
You can pull them on.
Yeah, and those boots. All right, I digress. I'm sorry. I've been wanting to get into boots, but I'm afraid that I just don't have
You
the.
just gotta pull them on.
I know, but I just don't have the coordination to pull off boots that high.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's like Gene Simmons boots.
nope, can't do that. Too much pressure to be like Gene Simmons, but I just want to encourage anyone, if you guys want to find out more information about us, we're on any social media network, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube, and all of our stuff over here is mental health resources. We got comics, we got shirts, and yes, I just want to let you guys know.
Oh, we have VHS tapes.
We do. And Pops. So
Lollipops.
No, we have Funko Pops. And
Oh, right.
Lollipops.
I thought you meant soda pops. I was like, where are we right now?
So I'm just going to say, if you guys are struggling or you guys want to pick up any resources, we're going to be hanging around for like the next like half hour or so.
At least.
So thank you guys for partying with us and talking about
Titans.
Thank you.
How would you guys like to help us get mental health resources into schools, conventions, and other events? Well, now you can. Simply go to patreon.com/victims and villains for as little as $1 a month. You guys can help us get mental health resources into current and upcoming generations, educate and break down stigma surrounding mental health, suicide, and depression. And you get exclusive content that you can't get anywhere else. And you guys can tell us which Nicolas Cage movie you want us to cover, and we'll do it. All it takes to get started is to go to patreon.com/victims and villains, or simply click the link in the episode description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this episode. Pick your tier and get started today. Yes, it's that simple. So quickly select the tier that you want and help us get hope into the hands of the depressed and the suicidal today.